And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Voice Masters. Welcome, singers from around the world. It's a pleasure to be here today. I am excited, as always, to discuss on Voice Masters live stream the fundamental question: what does every singer need to know? And I ask myself that question as an educator, as a performer. What do I have to share? What do I want to share? It's not an easy question to answer, but I find myself being passionate about different elements of different answers to that question at different phases in my singing and also in different phases in coaching other singers. And today, it's my pleasure to have with me Dr. Daniel Robinson, all the way from Australia. Welcome, Dr. Dan, to Voice Masters.
Thanks for having me on the show, Philippe. It's great to be here. It was a real pleasure to receive your invitation to join you on the show.
Thank you. And for anybody that doesn't know Dr. Dan, I want to let you and my community and all singers out there know that Dr. Dan has some of, in my opinion, some of the best content on YouTube out there for singers. I've watched his videos, I've enjoyed his videos, and of course that's why I reached out to him and said, hey, let's talk about singing. Let's talk about singing, and why don't you come on Voice Masters, and then we'll do some collaborations in the future. So if you don't know Dr. Dan, first I thought I didn't know Daniel very well, and I thought, oh, that's a kind of a cool little name. I wonder, I wonder if there's anything to do with maybe a PhD in the background, or if he's just, some fancy YouTube guy, but that's not the case. Dr. Dan is a real PhD. He has his doctor in music. He is a studied singer, kind of like myself, and I really appreciate that. So you get to hear from a real doctor in music and singing. And not only that, Dr. Dan here has also been very successful as an artist, as a singer. He's not just on the philosophy side and the research side, he's done it. And that's a rare combination. It is really a rare combination, and I look for that, and I really respect that, because that's my background as well, right? It's not easy to manage a career over decades. I mean, most of the artists out there, we don't hear of them for more than just a few years. So the fact that you have managed your own singing career professionally for several decades, also studied, you've taught at universities, you have written articles for various papers, magazines, you've served as the president of the board of directors of the Australian Voice Association. It's kind of like you're the who's who of voice in Australia.
I don't know that I'd go that far, but I've certainly been around the traps for a little while. And Australia as a country really punches above its weight when it comes to vocal pedagogy, and it's been my great pleasure and privilege to be a part of and work alongside so many excellent pedagogues that we have down here in Australia, and so I enjoy playing my little part in the great symphony of voice teaching in my country.
Well, I appreciate all the work that you've done, and when I say that, of course, I'm referring to the great content you're putting out there, the contributions you made to the voice industry teachers associations around the world, but also just plain and simple, I appreciate the work that you put in, because it is a lot of time commitment and dedication and consistency. And even speaking with you, one thing that I noticed right away is just this nice, easygoing, positive vibe that you have on your channel, and it's just who you are, and that's lovely. That's really lovely.
I'm glad that's your impression. I would hope that would be the impression I leave with people, because that's certainly we down here in Australia, we're pretty easygoing folk. we don't like to think more highly of ourselves than we ought. We like to, have quite a sober judgment of oneself, and I'm no different to that. And I think, in the world of singing, this singing thing it's in Western culture, it's become something that I don't necessarily think it needs to be thought of, and where it's this sort of mystical thing, and those who can do it, they're almost like gods, and I just don't buy into that pop culture view of singing any longer. I in one sense, to my shame, in my younger years, I did. I loved the ego pump I got from being considered one of those, blessed people to have a singing voice. But the older I get, I had my birthday last week. I'm not getting any younger. The older I get, the more I realize this singing thing should be just another expression of human beings, one to another. And I love working with people and helping them to discover and their voice, to help it emerge, and for them to realize their full vocal potential.
I appreciate that. I really do. You all have to excuse me because I'm like, okay, where's the chat window? Are we really live? And so, hey, Diego.
As you know, I run my own live show. I completely get it. We do these as a one-man team thing. I'm very fortunate. I have a lady who assists me, Linda. She is just fabulous, and I get scared at the thought of never having Linda around any longer, because it's a challenging thing. So you do what you have to do.
You do, we do, but we want to make it valuable. So I hear your passion. You're passionate about helping singers, and I also have to say, from my personal experience, it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful when you see people develop and then do things that you didn't even expect that they would be able to do, and then sometimes so quickly. And I've shared this with a couple of my clients. I mean, I think of one client in particular, and I've spoken about him. When he started, he came to me, I was like, yes, sure, I can help you. But I was thinking in the back of my mind, oh, wow. So where do we start? But it doesn't. My criteria for who I'm going to coach, it has nothing to do with their ability level. It has to do with their personal commitment level. And I've watched this individual stick to it for 2 years. All right, 2 years. He wasn't really motivated. He wasn't really practicing all the time. And I thought, he's going to quit next week. I probably thought he was going to quit next month for at least a year. And then he didn't. And he kept going. The kid sounds amazing now. And he's small. Like, I think you and I are a little bit on the light side, And he has a huge bass voice and is really coming out. And I'm so impressed. And that is also just pointed out and reaffirmed to me, singers, it's not about big, huge accelerations of progress. The people that progress the furthest are the ones that are just doing a little bit at a time, a little bit every day, over time. It really builds up and pays off. But before I go off on any tangent, let's get to the meat of Voice Masters and pop the question. So, Dr. Dan, what do you think every singer needs to know?
Yeah, you asked me this question when we first got together pre-show, and I thought about it at quite some length, and it just so happens that I am about to release in the next 6 weeks or so a brand new online course called My Singer's Starting Guide, and it's the course that I wish I had have had when I first started to sing, because it answers the very question you just asked me. What does every singer need to know? And it's a funny thing, because often we don't think of when we think of singing, we often go directly to the destination. We don't think about the journey,
Hmm.
and we all want to kind of be, transported to that end point. And I often say to my students, you know, don't circumnavigate the journey. The journey has too much to teach you, um, and it's the the there's a whole range. I'm trying to think of to order it, and I might just go through the order of what my online course is going to do without looking to upsell the course at this stage. But firstly, I think it is important for a singer to establish a sense of philosophy around their singing. Why do you sing? What is it? What are your motivating factors around singing? And this is important. I do have students that walk into my studio who do declare, in fact, I had one at the beginning of this year say to me, my aim is to win an ARIA. An ARIA is our the Australian sort of version of the Grammys. And that's cool. I do work with that level of clientele. But I have other people who are stepping into my studio and they simply want to develop a sweeter voice for when they sing their grandchild to sleep with a lullaby. In my opinion, both of those aims are of equal value. And one's not better than the other. One doesn't deserve more attention than the other. I mean, how beautiful to be able to sing your grandchild to sleep. And so I think you need to identify why am I doing this, and then to be really settled in that, and that'll go a long way to then governing, your progress forward and feeling comfortable in your own skin. And that's like I said before, in Western culture where we've developed this idea that we have the singers and we have the non-singers. I don't buy into that dichotomy. I think that's a
No.
complete and utter joke, as we would say down here in the land down under. It's there is no such as singer non-singer. We are all singers, and notwithstanding that very small unfortunate group who, for whatever reason, due to maybe an abnormality or something where they can't use their voice for singing, the vast majority of the human population can sing.
Yeah.
Now, you may not choose to sing, and that's okay. But if you want to, there are no prerequisites that you have to meet in accordance with, popular expectation as to whether you should or you shouldn't. In my studio, every voice deserves to be heard. And I think that's a really, really important point. Once you've established that sense of philosophy, that sense of ideology and approach, what you want to then do is learn about the instrument. I think there is so much value in understanding about, for example, the anatomy of the voice. One of the challenges of learning to sing is found in the fact that we are the instrument, but a big part of that mechanism is housed within the neck. You can't get to it. You can't manipulate it, physically with our fingers. Unlike a piano or a guitar, where if I was teaching guitar and I said to someone, "Okay, I want you to play D," and I can actually pick their finger up and manipulate it and move it. But if I say to a singer, "Okay, I want you to sing this D note," neither myself nor the singer can get in there and manipulate physically the tuning of that note. There has to be other things that we learn to do and to manage the anatomy. And so having a holistic view and understanding, even just a really basic understanding of the vocal anatomy is so beneficial to the development of a singer.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's
Yeah.
it's one of the first things I've got a 2-point philosophy, right? So if you want to learn how to sing, For me, the first thing I tell everybody, the first thing you need to do is you need to change the way you think about singing. You need to change your mindset, your concept, because in essence, how you sing today is what you are thinking. And you're sending a message to your voice to do something specific. It's the
Yeah.
way you think about it. So the only way to evolve how you think about singing is exactly that. Learn how it works. Educate yourself. Every little bit of every piece of information you add to that just gives you a more advanced concept that you think, right? I think it was maybe I can't remember which colleague it was exactly, but anyway, a colleague of mine said, the more dots you have on a piece of paper, the more dots you can connect. So if you have three dots about singing in your mind of what singing is, then you can connect three dots. If you now have 30, you've evolved your mindset around singing. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, yeah, and and building that. The other thing about understanding anatomy, I think, is it helps you to establish a better mind map. Body mapping is such a big part of what I do with my teaching. You know, if you think things are where they aren't, for example, you know, if you're always, you know, touching your abdominals when you're talking about your diaphragm, then your mind map is a little askew,
Yeah.
and so correcting that, you know, through your you know, growing understanding and knowledge of anatomy is really important. The next point is that when you have got a great philosophy around why you're singing and what this singing thing is, when you understand the instrument a bit more, then the next thing we have to think about is how do I care for it? And so learning to you know, to care for your voice, understanding the benefits of vocal rest. I've just been on in the last since the beginning of COVID, I've had this monumental discovery around my own voice. And I've been professionally singing for, you know, I'm not currently actively gigging, but prior to that, for about 25 years professionally singing. I so wish, I was saying to my wife yesterday, I so wish I had have discovered this major key for my voice decades ago. And it simply comes down to my allergies. And I had no understanding around the just how significantly impacted my voice was via my allergies. The reason I discovered it with COVID is because I put an air purifier into my studio for in-studio lessons, and in doing so put one into our bedroom. Overnight, it transformed my world.
Wow.
It completely, I cannot, it just was radical. Now, that's a vocal health issue. And I was singing professionally with one vocal fold tied behind my back. It's, you know, because I was always rocking up to gigs sick and the voice always falling into disrepair, just purely because, and I had no idea that it was allergy driven, dust driven. So it's these things that we all have to discover, and we can be helped to, and I've been so privileged to help in the last 2 years, to help a number of my students explore the idea of allergies, and they too a couple of them have bought air purifiers, and it's changed their world. Others are struggling with reflux, and so it's identifying these major issues that can have an impact on your vocal health. So learning how to care for your voice is something that I think every singer has to do. We only get given one. We've only got one voice. For our female singers, it's understanding whether to what extent hormonal fluctuation is having an impact. Big challenges there for some ladies. So all of these things are things that we need to learn to manage. And then once we've got that all bedded down, once we're really taking on all of that information and we're starting to process that and practically apply those things, philosophy, anatomy, voice care, then I think we can start to talk about things like aesthetic and function. And you know, because I'm very passionate about function. I'm very passionate about technique. I love teaching technique because I know just how much value it brings to the student singer.
Hmm.
But in doing so, I think I've fallen prey to a misconception that I don't care about the aesthetic. And I can tell you, I couldn't have had a career of 25 years professional singing if I wasn't cognizant of how important the aesthetic of our singing is. But that being said, I've got another saying in my studio, and that is that singing is not about perfect notes. It never has been, and it never will be. Singing is about communication. And it's all about ensuring that the narrative of your lyric is delivered from you, the performer, all the way through to the audience. And it's not the audience's total responsibility to pick that up. It is the responsibility of the singer. But when I talk about that, I think some singers immediately, particularly beginner singers, immediately go to thinking that we're discussing pitch accuracy and remembering the lyrics. And I think that's where most singers start. They go, learning to sing is all about singing in tune and being able to remember lyrics.
Yeah.
Nothing will give you a more dry, uneventful, boring performance than perfect notes. And the point being is a human being is incapable of 100% accuracy 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And so I always steer my students away from a need to, or the pressure to sing perfectly in tune. Are we looking to develop our pitch accuracy? Of course we are, but not to the point of perfection. Yeah, and I think that one of the unfortunate things in our modern age is the advent of technologies like Melodyne, Auto-Tune. These have their place. I've got an album, and I'm very open in telling people it has been tuned. There is tuning on my album. But guess what, everyone? There is tuning on every album that you listen to. Every album.
Every album.
Every album.
It's so true. I remember, this is a long time ago, but I wanted just to have a demo track, and I wanted it to be not tuned. Mm-hmm. So it has like the little imperfections in there because I wanted it to be real, you know, and I thought I was going to be very authentic in presenting my ability to wherever I sent it out. And the guy in the studio is a friend of mine. He's like, he just smiled. He's like, no, Philippe.
No, Philippe.
He said, everybody does it all the time. It's just part of the sound. And if you don't do it, people aren't going to think, you can't write on your album, no tuning.
No tuning.
You know, nobody cares. They're used to hearing the perfect product because that's what everybody's delivering with the technology. And if you don't do it, they're just going to think you're no good, or they're going to think it was very, very cheaply, poorly produced.
Yeah.
And you're right. It gives this false perception, and all these singers, and then people will say, you know, they'll just say, oh, I wish I could sing, and they'll try and sing, and it's not like that, and they just go, oh, I guess I can't sing. Nothing could be farther from the truth, right?
Absolutely. And one of the frustrations I find on YouTube in particular, and as a fellow YouTuber, I think you'll understand this, is that I choose on YouTube, I do not tune anything. And so when I sing in my YouTube channel, when I'm singing in my online courses, nothing of mine has been tuned. And because I do want, this is becoming more and more a drive of mine, a passion to constantly display the authentic voice. That's not to say that if I was to go and do another professional level album for a professional release, it would be tuned. I'm talking within the context of learning to sing. And there's a number of rather large channels on YouTube, and the production value is extraordinary, and I acknowledge that. But with that really high level of production value comes a level of inauthenticity, a disingenuous delivery of what is quite obviously doctored singing. It's not real. And when people then watch those videos or engage with those learnings, it can only tell you that you're not living up to it, because you can't.
Right.
You will never live up to that. It's not real.
Yeah, and I'm 100% on board with you there. I think if we go back, the singers before the modern technology, if you want to hear great singers, you go back to the birth of rock and roll, Elvis, and that whole Buddy Holly and that whole era. Those are one take things. They sounded like that. They were incredibly great singers and very consistent. But all the same, I've been on this stage myself for 30 years, thousands of performances, and nobody, no matter how good, sounds the same every single time. That's kind of the game. Getting your ability level in its chunk, what I like to say, your absolute best day and your current absolute worst day. I used to be afraid, and we get nervous when we sing. So before a performance, I'm like, oh gosh, what if it doesn't work out? And I had to learn, the mindset around singing, psychology of singing is tough for performers. But just had to realize, look, you're not going to fall off the grid, Philippe. You might not have your best day today, but you're probably not going to have your worst. It's probably going to be somewhere in between. It's going to be in
the zone, yeah.
And that is your realistic ability level. Yeah. That is, you're not going to bust out of it and do something miraculous. It doesn't happen, people. It doesn't happen, singers. You have your ability level from your best day to your worst day, and you live in between. And that's what we're going to move up through training our technique over time.
Yeah, and we are wonderfully imperfect. That's what makes us human, and that's what makes that's what makes a performance really grab us, I think. It's when that wonderfully imperfect authenticity is exposed, and I'm just becoming more and more convicted and convinced that we need to be constantly telling people that perfection is not the goal. Not only because I don't think it should be, but because it's an unrealistic goal. It cannot be achieved, and so it's something that I'm very passionate about.
I appreciate that. It's just great. So I'm going to just jump in on this opportunity and say, I'm also very passionate about this, and I'm happy on February 27th, I'm going to be on your show, and we're going to talk about the course that I created to help singers do exactly this: communicate powerfully, emotionally, because there is a lack of resources out there. When I did the course, I was already passionate about it, but now it's out there, and then I'm Googling around, I'm going, there is no other course on the planet that teaches you how to do this, connect emotionally. And like you said, it's the imperfection, if you will, that gives it authenticity, but it's also perfect in a way because it's pure expression. And every technique we learn serves just that purpose, to free us for communication and expression. That's the only purpose of singing technique.
That is, and in some ways, there's an old saying, and this was a saying I grew up with for good or for ill. Children should be heard. Children should be seen, not heard. It's a terrible saying, but in some ways, great technique should be heard but not seen. And technique, I often describe technique as as a subterranean river. You know, it's an underground aquifer that gives life to everything above it, but you don't know it's there. Without it,
Yeah.
it's, everything will dry up. But with it, it gives life to communication. It gives life to emotion. It empowers your ability to communicate. And this is why I am very passionate about technique, and I spend, I do describe myself as a technically focused singing teacher, because I know how empowering a good foundational solid technique is to a singer who is wanting to deliver a narrative. And so that's why, I often talk about aesthetic versus function, but it's not really, they're not pitted against one another. They work in harmony, they work in team with one another, and they empower one another. And then the final thing that I often, in keep coming back to the question that you posed at the very beginning of our session today, the other thing that I do think we need to know, and this is pretty much in keeping with voice care, but I am still a great believer in vocal warm-ups, in vocal cool-downs. However, I think they are a highly misunderstood activity. So often my students will refer to particularly beginner students, they'll refer to my technical exercises as their warm-ups. And I do always gently correct them and say, a technical workout activity will warm the voice, but a vocal warm-up is not a technical workout.
Mm-hmm.
They serve two different purposes. And I think some people spend too long warming up, some people don't spend enough. And so it's identifying the importance of a vocal warm-up, the discipline of a warm-up. Anecdotally, for myself, for my students, I do know that spending that time, not in lesson, the technical workout exercises that I do naturally, hone and tone the voice. But I am a great believer in the discipline of vocal warm-ups, and not going hard and big to start with. You have to get the muscle moving, get the blood flowing. It is a very gradual, intentional process that you can do mindlessly. You don't, I often, when I'm no longer professionally gigging, but I sing for my church, and I'm often warming up as I'm bumping in my gear, because I play guitar as well. So I'm often I'm not thinking about the warm up, but I am taking my voice through a very well trod path of gradual, intentional movement that gets the blood into the muscle, gets it responding. Particularly very important for me, because normally at church I'm singing at 7:30 on a Sunday morning. And so these are important things to do, and these are all the things that I wish that I had have known when I first started. I would have saved myself a truckload of challenge had I been able to engage in this very practical information when I first started.
Yeah, I understand, man. I really can relate. I like to tell people, because I've been a professional singer for a long time, so I made a ton of mistakes. Right? Nobody that's been singing for a long time, it's not that you didn't make any mistakes and that's why you were so great for so long. No, it's because you made a lot of mistakes and you had to keep working, and you always do, because just to stay in the business, you have to continue to be competitive. Yeah. And the end of the day is, if you're not singing and communicating better than the next guy, you don't eat.
Yeah.
You don't pay your rent. That's just the hard knocks life of it. So I remember I used to warm up. I'd sing through the whole opera, all of the really hard spots, about like 5 times before the show.
Ouch.
And one of my colleagues, just to get it right once, and like, oh, that was perfect. Now I'm done. Oh my gosh, it was so wrong. It was so wrong.
Yeah,
I worked so hard for so long the wrong way. I even had
yeah,
a couple of colleagues saying, do you think that's really a good idea? Maybe you're going to be tired during the show. But I came from the musical world where
yes,
you perform 8 shows a week, and I'm like, what are these sissy opera singers complaining about that they have to sing 2 shows in a row? Come to the with the tough guys, the music performers. It's 8 nights a week. Well,
come and do, yeah,
it's a little bit of a different ball game, but the reality is, yeah, if the warm up is very important. I like to think of it just as you described. I use slightly different words, but I'm totally on the same wavelength. I like to say activation.
yeah,
There's an activation phase, and that's not your technical practice. That's just
no,
activating because we have all these tiny little tendons, muscles, blood flow, and not just here. We have it in our ribs, in our abdomen. The singing's a whole body thing.
yes,
So learning how to get it active, it's just going to respond so much better. So I love that that's part of, if I'm understanding correctly, that's part of your so what's the name of the new singing
the
course?
Dr. Dan's Singer's Starting Guide.
Singing starter guide. Because yeah, if you know this stuff in the beginning, you don't have to go through so many hard knock lessons
Yeah,
that I've been through. That's part of my mission too, is say, okay, I struggled, I spent tons of money, tons of time. Why
yeah,
should anybody else have to go that route when the easier path is it's right there.
yeah,
It's right
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
You know?
and I think too, when when you and I we're of a not dissimilar vintage, when you and I were starting out, there was very little information readily available,
Right.
easily accessible. And now there are great channels like yours, dare I say mine, where this information is available and you can really learn and not make the same mistakes. You don't need to make them. You don't need to go through the school of hard knocks
Yeah.
just simply to to feel like that was your rite of passage.
And that's kind of an issue, though, right? I find that that's an issue for a lot of people. It was before all this was available. How did you find the right voice teacher? You basically went to somebody that sang well and said, "Who's your teacher?" And
Yeah.
then you had these guru status teachers that were
Yes.
famous, and you try to go with them. And then you realize, okay, they never learned how to teach. They just learned how to fix their own voice.
Yes.
And now we have this sea of information. That's part of my mission. I think your mission as well is just getting correct information out there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you?
I find one of the challenges, there's a few challenges that happen within the singing community. Firstly, and this is still the case, I think, to a great extent, is it's the blind leading the blind. You might be gigging with a fellow singer and that fellow singer says, oh, you're having problems with this. Try XYZ. They themselves, that XYZ may have even helped them, but that does not mean that it's the right thing for you,
Right.
and so understanding that the information, there are so many myths in the singing world, that there is a little bit of critical reasoning goes a long way. And sometimes, learning this information that we're talking about is helpful for you to be able to filter some of that. But then, yeah, the guru teacher thing, I'm more and more convinced there. And look, there are some guru teachers in the world who are actually quite deserving of
Yeah,
that
sure.
that status. And
Just like you and me, right?
just like you. Yeah, yeah.
No, but it's
And
important to say. It's important to say. Not everybody that's famous is crap.
no,
There are
that's
some people
exactly
that
right.
are very deserving of because they are excellent.
Exactly. But the other challenge around the guru status is often that guru status has been established on the name of other singers. And having gone through the academic world as I have, having observed many teachers, not all, and I want to be really careful here. This is not a one brush stroke, to
Right.
taint everyone. But there are a lot of teachers who have had the great fortune of being allocated students within the academic space who were always going to be great.
Yeah.
No matter which teacher they landed with, that singer was always going to make that teacher look amazing.
Right.
That teacher didn't have to come with their A game to make that student, develop into the singer, because the singer arrived already in that condition.
Right.
And so I think it is important that we don't get captivated by the big names, the celebrity status of a teacher, that we go looking for a teacher who is going to be able to really meet us at where we're at, and walk alongside us in a caring, encouraging manner. Just the other day, I heard of a student who finished with a teacher, and the student received an earful for bringing that chap to an end, and that really upsets me. I think that there's no place for that.
Yeah.
And so you want to find someone that who does have some knowledge. I think it is important in the modern age, 2022, that your teacher does have some pedagogy nous, that they have, and it doesn't have to be purely formal academic training. There is so many good information, great books, great courses for teachers to engage with now to upskill their pedagogy. But they do need to come to, when you're handing over your hard-earned coin, it is important that you're handing it over to someone that can present a level of quality of information and expertise and experience. But you don't have to be, paying for the brand. That's not always a necessary thing.
Sure. It's because I've invested myself in so much vocal coaching, and guys, I just want to say, if I were looking for somebody to listen to me, I never go on stage without having coaching on that, having had coaching on that role beforehand. Yeah. So it's important. That's like the second thing we need. Dr. Dan's talking about, he's created this course dedicated to help you expand what I call your understanding of singing, your concept, your mindset about singing. That's what my courses are dedicated to as well. And they're not mutually exclusive. Anybody that's using my course, I can full-heartedly say, you're going to learn more stuff in Dr. Dan's course as well, because nobody can say everything all together. It's just not possible. So we got to expand our knowledge. And then every one of us needs the personal mentorship and guidance for a very simple reason. We don't live outside of our body. We don't hear and observe ourselves the way other people do. And if I need that feedback, you need that feedback. That's what every singer needs to improve their singing is change your mindset, get personal guidance, and then do find somebody that you can trust. And it's a big deal, right?
Can I pick up on something you just made mention
please.
of, and that is that I think one red flag should always be when you're looking for a singing teacher is if that singing teacher gives even the slightest suggestion that they are the one-stop shop, that they can give you everything you'll ever need, and that in fact when you start with them you actually have to wipe the slate clean and start again. That is a red flag.
Yes.
That there is a red flag for a teacher who is not student focused. They're not student facing. They are actually a bit more about their own ego than what you might want to engage with.
Oh, thank you. I listen to that, everybody, because I wish I've been through that experience. I've seen very famous singers really end other singers' careers.
Yeah.
And all of the things you just mentioned would have been, setting off the alarms. But I was like, oh, he's so
Yeah.
amazing, and I want to sing like that. And it was just many. Not every great singer is a great teacher. So those are really key. There is,
Every teacher has something to give you.
yes,
Every teacher. Some teachers have more to give you than others, but no teacher can give you everything you'll ever need.
yeah,
It's because, I mean, you and I, we're not gods. We can't possibly know everything there is to know about singing. Mostly because we as a human race don't yet know everything there is to know about singing. We're discovering
exactly.
new things all the way. And I don't know about you, Philippe, but just keeping up with the changing, moving, accelerated development and understanding around voice, it's a real challenge as
Yeah.
an engaged pedagogue. And so I always say to students, I am coming in alongside your journey, and I'm going to simply be one chapter in your book. This is my 27th year of teaching this year. I do not have any one student still with me that was with me 27 years ago. Now, funnily enough, I am currently teaching the daughter of one of my original students, but that's not the same, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
point being is, I'm only ever with I've got a lot of long-term students, a number of students that are 7, 8 years, but those journeys too will come to an end. Those chapters will come to a close.
Sure.
And my great hope for those students, both my short and long term, is that I won't be their last ever singing teacher. How tragic would that be? I want them to continue to develop. I want them to go on to the next phase of their development that I almost certainly cannot provide them.
Yeah.
And so it is an area that I'm also quite passionate about. That students shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater when they start with a new teacher. That
I love that.
they bring with them their learnings from previous. Sometimes there are pieces of misinformation that need to be corrected, or altered, or enhanced, and that is certainly the case. And yes, there are, just like in every part of society and part of life, there are bad teachers. There are.
There are, yeah.
You've only got to jump on YouTube to see a few examples. But your general garden variety singing teacher in the suburbs, just like you and me, Philippe, are good, well-intentioned, active pedagogues who are desiring of your betterment. And I love to champion the teacher world as being non-competitive, as being mutually, encouraging. And as you know, and just all the time, well, I know that we need to finish up, but the singing teaching world can be a rather toxic one. Sadly, it is, and that's another whole discussion, which we won't get into. But it can be a toxic space. And it's important for students, I think, of singing, learning to sing, to understand that, to keep an ear out for any of that toxicity that may come through a teacher's
Sure.
vernacular and rhetoric. And again, that might be a red flag.
Yeah, it is okay. The way I speak with consultations, I try and convey my energy because, like you said, I want to find people that match up well with me because those are the people I'm going to be able to help the most.
Yeah.
But I don't have the expectation that I'm going to be able to help everyone equally as well. So if I'm clear with them, and they get the vibe I'm right for them, that's great. And if they don't, that's fine. Then I've helped them as well find someone else that they're going to connect with better. I think So let's kind of recap. The first thing you're saying, what every singer needs to know is that you need to continue to grow your understanding of singing and how the voice works,
Yeah.
because that's going to help you connect more dots. It's
Yes.
going to, so keep growing your understanding of singing. You've got programs, channel, a new course for singers coming out dedicated to that. We're doing Voice Masters live stream dedicated to that. I've got courses dedicated to that. And that everything I say is not the begin all end all. We can take Dr. Dan and just fit it right there. I can learn from, just keep learning.
Keep
and
learning.
and then the second thing you've spoken about a lot is activating the voice, or a warm up is not the same thing as a technical practice. Maybe do you have a favorite, I mean, this is just one of your favorite voice activations?
Look, I don't. I mean, straw phonation is the buzz activity at the moment. Excuse the pun, but when I'm bumping in for a gig and wanting to activate my voice, doing a singing warm up, I can't be walking around with a straw or a bottle, and I hate just doing it with a straw. I prefer to do it into a bottle with water. Um, but and so really, I find myself doing a lot of hums. Just a simple 5 note in the middle of my range, and I'm active. I do like that word, Philippe. It's because it's spot on. That's exactly what we're doing. We're activating the voice, and moving the voice up, moving the voice down. I do use lip bubbles, tongue trills. And it's all about semi-occluded vocal tract activity that is building back some back pressure to keep the vocal folds in a balanced oscillation within a relatively. It only has to be over an octave and a half to start.
Yeah.
You don't have to be.
Yeah.
Good vocal warm-ups are not about exploring the extremes of your voice during the first half of a warm-up.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so anyway,
Yes.
SOVTs in general are very good.
Let me
And
let me just grab onto this. Okay, so I want just to give some alpha behind the scenes information. Okay, Dr. Dan just said, a hum, a hum. What is a hum? The hum. One thing a hum does, when done correctly, is it balances your resonance. The second thing Dr. Dan said was an SOVT exercise, which helps you maintain a smooth airflow in your singing. And the third thing he said was a tongue trill, which actually releases your tongue root muscle. So all these are really simple, but they really work many things. There's a logic behind some of these. It's, if you understand it, you get an immense amount of benefit out of that. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because every singer has been taught to do, and do hums, and people are like, why?
And it is important. It is important that, and harkening back to a point we made earlier, a really good singing teacher won't, and you've shown this just then, won't just give you an activity and get you to repeat it like a parrot. It is important that you do understand why you're doing what you're doing. With my students, certainly I would go through, what is a hum doing? What is a lip bubble? What is a tongue trill? What are the benefits? Why do we do them? When should we do them? How do we use them? It is important that you do understand the reasoning behind them.
Absolutely. Look, I know we got to wrap it up, and I thank you for spending this time. I do, however, wanted just to jump on a question here from Kelly Morrison. She was so sweet and put it right in the beginning. It's just, she said, and it's a great question, is it okay to change our reason over time, or are we supposed to stay focused on it?
And full disclaimer, Kelly is one of my students.
Okay.
Kelly's jumped in and watched the show. Hi, Kelly. Absolutely. In fact, because we change throughout life, we mature. Our journey is a journey of time as much as it is a journey of vocal development. And so we as human beings are changing. And so I often talk with students about, as they go through different phases of their life, that at times they've got to renegotiate that reason for engaging with their singing. So for me, I'm no longer engaging with my singing because I'm actively gigging as a professional. However, I am engaging with my singing around my church. Now, that has a very different application and reason for being than does what I used to do when I was singing Moulin Rouge, So it's these are of course, Kelly, yes, we are constantly renegotiating our reasons for doing it, but every single reason for doing it has value.
Absolutely. It's okay, Kelly. Everybody in life, you will evolve and your voice will evolve with you. And that's just normal and absolutely right. Who wants to start life and finish life the same way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully we've all grown.
Hopefully.
Dan, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. I think it's been a very enjoyable conversation for me.
Yeah.
And I hope people could glean some of these really valuable little bits here that when you understand, it's really will save you at the end of the day. It's going to save you hours and thousands of dollars. Just these little bits here, if you can internalize that, and it will calm your mind down about your singing. And that's so important. So singers, tune in next week for Voice Masters. Please subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. Our goal is to share information with the world of singers that's going to help you answer your questions. You can comment on this video. We'll get to your questions for sure. Let's have a big virtual round of applause at home for Dr. Dan. Put some love into the chat box, and thanks for tuning in, Lynn, Kathy, Diego, Ezra, Kelly, Kenny, and hello. I know many of you, so thanks so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day, Dan, and we'll see you very latest on February 27th on your channel.
It's been a real joy. Thanks, Philippe.
My pleasure, Dan. Take care.